Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to Vlog 17 with an acknowledgement of country. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today, elders past and present, and Indigenous students and colleagues who share this digital or this analogue space. Today, this very special vlog shares the research, shares the journey of one of our Flinders PhD students who is just about to finish, Maree Meredith. Maree is doing many extraordinary things in her research, but as we're about to find out, she is a radically interdisciplinary scholar, has used some astounding methods in her research to try and find a way to combine arts centres and health promotion for Indigenous communities. The work she is doing is a model and a method for the rest of the world. Now, as you may know, the motto, the mantra of the Office of Graduate Research is excellence with social justice. And both these paradigms, excellence and social justice, are found in Maree's work. Let's go share some of it with her. You ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Let's do this. Hello everyone, we're back again, and it's my great pleasure to introduce Maree Meredith. She is amazing. She is our first student to feature on a vlog, and you're about to find out why she's the first student to feature in our vlogs. And she's just about to finish, and she's delivering her final presentation
This Friday.
on Friday. How do you feel about it?
Yes, I feel okay actually. I just had a last supervision, so yeah, we're leading into the home stretch now. So
It's unbelievable, but we won't talk about the home stretch right now. I'll start, if I can, at the beginning, darling one.
Yeah.
And this is back 3 years, if you like. What drew you to think about, you know what, I'm going to enrol in a PhD? It's a huge decision. How did you make that decision?
I was at the Australian National University completing a Masters, so a Masters in Applied Anthropology and Participatory Development.
Wow.
And I specialised in Indigenous policy. And then Flinders University had advertised for a scholarship, so I was on my last paper of my Masters, saw the advertisement and applied, and voila, signed up for a PhD.
And you actually visited the campus first, didn't you? When you looked like you were maybe going to apply for that scholarship, you decided to come first?
Well, I came to the university for the interview. So I came with my mum and my daughter, and yeah, came to the campus and did the interview and was
Successful?
yeah. So that was in 2011, and I signed up for the PhD 2012. So
And we are so incredibly lucky that you did. It's been a remarkable journey. And let's get into the thesis itself, because it's working in an area that I think is transformative, not only for this country, but I think for the planet. It's a model for how we'll think about this type of radical interdisciplinary work in future. So you looked at health promotion in arts centres in the APY lands. So for our international viewers, for our international viewers, could you talk a little bit about why this place is so special, is so extraordinary, and what other Indigenous communities, and when we study those Indigenous communities around the world, what we can learn from your research?
I worked in the APY lands, which is the Anangu, Pitjantjatjara, Yankunytjatjara lands in northwest South Australia.
Yes.
And I worked across various art centres, so 4 art centres, and looking at the health promotion benefits of the art centres. So looking at how art centres keep Aboriginal people healthy holistically, so but looking at their practice, so their art as health promotion through the art centres and through the arts. So.
And that is extraordinary. It has so much potential and capacity for Indigenous communities, but you'd also think beyond Indigenous communities as well.
I think this is a remarkable model, the art centre model. I think there needs to be more focus, more support with the art centres, because they're not only a place where Indigenous people like to come and do art, but there's so many other spin-offs that the art centre provides. So, you know, through the social services, through having the ability to access resources outside of the community is really important because we're talking about very remote communities. So.
And the remote bit of this story, I think, becomes increasingly important. This isn't just rural or regional. This is a highly remote community with particular challenges and profound strengths as well. So I think there's a lot we can learn from this. And I did want to talk about methods with you. You've talked about your background in anthropology, which I think is incredibly important. But I think, and please correct me, did you use ethnography to understand and to study and interpret this community? And what are the particular challenges in the use of ethnography when working with Indigenous men and women and Indigenous communities?
So my research is an ethnographic account, and really important, the component of ethnography is the observation and the ability to observe in the location, in the art centres. So the observation is the basis of my field notes. So this is where I start to develop the narrative, so to speak, the narrative of the thesis. And those observations were absolutely key to me drawing out some of the nuances of art centres and the getting the story right, bringing the people's voice into the thesis has been really important. So those field notes were really crucial in developing and putting the story together.
Yeah, and when we've talked about it too, you often, in such an evocative fashion, discuss the role of silence, the importance of you as the ethnographer sitting and being quiet and waiting for your participants to engage you in some form. Did the silence and that quietness matter?
I think really early on in the piece, when you're going into the field, it's so important just to sit and listen and to get a feel for the ebb and flow of the communities.
Yeah.
And being silent is so important for protocol as well. So,
do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? So what's the role of silence when you're dealing with elders, for example, as a case study?
I think with my research, for instance, it was important to be invited and to negotiate your position in the field with people. So waiting and being asked is you know, it's very important not to go in and you know, as the researcher wanting to collect data, well, I didn't collect data until 18 months in the field. So, you know, the ability to observe and to learn, because we're learning different ways of living and being and knowing, which is absolutely crucial to an Indigenous methodology. It's so important in those first stages of the research just to sit, listen and observe. Yeah. But then as the research kicks in, when you start to, you know, collect the data, people will invite you, and then that's how you actually negotiate your access in. And
that's so powerful.
Once it starts, you know who you're working with, where to go to for information, and if things happen, you know how to deal with it because you've got the right people working with you. So you've really got to sort your relationships out in the beginning, and that is why you have to observe first.
Yeah.
Is to understand the context first and foremost.
And I think we talk a lot in universities about sort of ethics and going through ethics approval, but I think particularly doing fieldwork, ethics is much more subtle and nuanced than that, isn't it? It's not about a committee approving it. It's about very gentle conversations, isn't it?
It's about relationships, I think. And I think for me, my research agenda is based on relationships and good relationships, and it's those relationships that will sustain you through the project. But then, of course, the outcome is revealing. You know, I've been taken on this journey, and it's been excellent. It's opened up my eyes. It's been very challenging, but at the end of the day, I've got a story which is worth knowing because I brought people along with me.
And I love that. I mean, that's the definition of a PhD, a story that is worth knowing. We talk about an original contribution to knowledge, but what you've discovered here, I think, is much more profound. And I'm going to drill a little bit more deeply into this, mate, and ask you about the specific challenges that you would confront when you're researching in not just a rural or regional Australian environment, but a remote environment. What specific challenges did you face when you were doing that?
I think the challenge of travel and the distances. My furthest community and art centre that I worked with was out to the Western Australian border. So communities, Pitjantjatjara and Kulka, and the art centre that I worked with out there was Anangu. Well, it would take me a good 8 hours to get to that community, so I would need to spend extensive time out in the communities because of where they are. And of course you've got to have a good vehicle, you've got to have, there's no internet and mobile coverage, so it's important to ring through first and let people know that you're coming and that they're expecting you, because if something goes wrong out there, and in some cases I've been travelling with my young daughter, so always to travel with someone that's from out there as well is really important. But the biggest challenge for me was the travel and driving on dirt roads.
Driving on roads that are not really roads.
Yeah, and then having to change tyres by yourself as well. That's a bit of a challenge. So.
And when we enrol you in a PhD, we rarely sort of do the tyre test, do we? We sort of ask for your research proposal, not whether or not you can change a tyre.
Yeah, I had some time in my previous job working with the Land Council, so I was well versed in changing tyres and driving people around and throwing swags up on troopies. You put the rest of us in shape.
Yeah. Fantastic, but you've captured, the distance that we're talking about, the difficulty of travelling, and also the disconnection, if you will, from what many of us as researchers take for granted.
Yeah, I think you come in and out of worlds, and I think that's it's hard sometimes because you don't know what world you're in. And that's part of the PhD journey is coming in and out of multiple worlds. And then to come out of it and then having to digest, wow, what was that all about?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's been phenomenal, is to try and sort out your positioning, coming in and out of the field.
And it is about ways of knowing. I think you've already captured that so strongly in this vlog. And it's not a culture clash, it's not a clash of knowledges. It's just ensuring that the enmeshing takes place with some integrity and some respect.
Yes, we often talk about it as the cultural interface, and it's about two worldviews coming together and making it work for the better good. In this case it was, looking at my research and what benefits I could bring back to people. So, the research is not just about taking but giving back. That's really important in this context.
She's impressive, isn't she? You have so many fascinating stories that you gathered through your research, but you've got a fascinating story that I was crying with laughter when you told me when you and I first met, about how you received library books from Flinders University. Would you share that with our guys and gals?
Where I lived, it's a little town called Marla, and it's one of the last towns as you're heading up the Stuart Highway from South Australia to the Northern Territory. So Marla's sort of situated on the Stuart Highway and the Yankunytjatjara track. So I lived there because I could get internet access. So most of my, to get my library books, I'd have to put in through the document delivery service, a fantastic service. I put in for, to get my books bought up, and in most cases my books would be sent up within a 24-hour period, 48-hour period at the latest, on the Greyhound bus, and they'd drop it off at the service station, and then the service station attendant will call me and say, your books have arrived. So, that's how I managed to survive out there, was having the internet and having my books delivered up
by the Greyhound bus.
By the Greyhound bus, because that was Australia Post as well.
And for all the great librarians out there, you are changing people's lives by doing great stuff like this.
Absolutely phenomenal, that service. It was fantastic, and I would have possibly 6 books at a time, and sometimes they would even be delivered at my doorstep, so I was pretty lucky.
Oh, I think we're pretty lucky, but it's a great library story too.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. Now, there's a lot of people who will watch this program. Yes, it's all geared for our students at Flinders University, but a lot of people around the world watch these vlogs as well. So for men and women who are out there, perhaps in a rural, regional or remote environment, what would you say to them going, can I do a PhD? What advice would you give to those men and women who want to do a PhD but they're in a remote location? What would you suggest to them?
Oh, look, I think it's all about making the system work for yourself. So, for instance, with me, it was having the ability to have my supervisions, and some of those supervisions were, done on Skype, but the majority of the time it was over the telephone. So the last 3 years I've had my supervisions over the telephone. And I'd be hanging out for those supervisions as well, so not many that I missed, because when you're in a remote location you absolutely need the sounding board too.
And the connection.
Absolutely. But making the system work, making sure that the library worked for me was absolutely crucial. So, there's systems there, but it's about making it work for yourself, and given the technology these days, sometimes it doesn't work out there, but you just got to find, ways that can, that you can try and enhance or make it easier for yourself. Yeah.
And you're nearly finished. Do you regret doing the doctorate, or has it been something that you're so proud of yourself that you've done? Do you look back on it now and go, I'm glad I've done it?
I'm so glad I've done it. Absolutely. Hard yakka, but it's been well and truly worth it.
And the final question I'll ask you, as I would always ask our PhD students who are just about to finish, is what's next? What sort of future areas of research do you think are going to emerge, looking at that relationship between the arts centre and health promotion? What's the future? Can you see a bit of the future research for us and share it with us?
I think there is a lot of potential in the creative industries, and I think in the future we need to start looking at, philanthropic sector as, as key sector to support research. And throughout my research, I was able to tap into non-government sources.
Yes.
And they were particularly interested in the arts. And
yes.
I think this idea of marrying, research with non-government support is
yes.
such an important collaboration. And they're very big advocates for the arts and the creative industries, and I think that's, for Flinders and potential students, I think we need to start looking at those other collaborations outside of your normal, partnerships. And philanthropic sector is very promising.
Really powerful, and you've captured so strongly that one of the key areas of the creative industries is what I call the GLAMs: galleries, libraries, archives and museums. And in some ways you've shown the potential, particularly in and through Indigenous politics and Indigenous social justice, to really make those connections work and work effectively, I think.
I think with a PhD you have the opportunity to do something different, and something that's not government driven, and that's where the power of research is, and philanthropic support had allowed me to do that.
Maree, I have got to know you very well over the last, 3-4 weeks?
Yep.
And you are, I think, one of the most astounding people I've ever had a chance to meet. You're a very dear person, you're a very brilliant woman, and I think you represent the best of what this university can do and can achieve. And it was worth coming to Adelaide and worth coming to Flinders to meet you.
Oh, thanks, Tara.
You are a great scholar, and I wish you every success in the future. You are just a remarkable person.
Thank you.
And thank you for everything that you do, and you will continue to do.
Yes.
So, on behalf of Maree and myself, we wish you love, we wish you light, we wish you peace. Do you want to say bye?
And I will say see you later. Bye. Oh. I hope that kind of